Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here for the Mountain Weather Information Service. This is your planning video on Friday the 10th of May. And after what's been a distinctly wintry spell of weather early this month, things are warming up as we go through into next week. High pressure is building, the airflow will be coming round more from the south to southeast, and things will feel much more like early summer across the mountains. Fair weather overall, lots of dry and sunny weather on the way for the week ahead. Some complications later in the week, but it still looks a fairly settled one for most places. We'll start off with a look at temperatures, and this chart is at 925 millibars. That represents around 800 or 900 metres above sea level during this period. The background map is very faint, so apologies for that, but hopefully you can see the general story. We start off the weekend on a chilly note, temperatures down below freezing on most of the higher tops. We've got a frost in some of the valleys and the glens. Freezing level around 700-800 metres, rising towards 1,200-1,300 metres through the day. It may never quite make it above freezing on the highest tops in Scotland. We'll see a frost forming again pretty widely overnight in the valleys and the glens, with clear skies into Sunday morning, light winds too, so a chilly start to Sunday. Temperatures, though, I suspect through the day will lift just above freezing on the higher tops, with the air mass being less cold than previous days. And that leaves us with much warmer conditions on the whole into next week. Just skipping forwards over a few days, this is into Monday, and temperatures around 900 metres up to 5-6 degrees, maybe even rising a few degrees higher than that. Northern Scotland in particular, you could find a few spots topping 10 Celsius, so the snow that's been around in recent times will be on the thaw once again. And those warm temperatures will continue for a few days. The airflow is south to southeasterly. There'll be some local foehn effect where the air crosses the highlands, warms up as it descends. So western and northwestern parts of Scotland, the Lake District, West Wales, will always do pretty well for warmest temperatures, up to 10 degrees or above, maybe on the Munro Heights. Temperatures in the valleys and the glens, locally into the low, possibly even mid-20s in one or two favoured spots through the middle of the week. So much different conditions. The wind flow effectively the opposite to what we've seen this past week or 10 days. These are the synoptic charts then for the days ahead, and for Saturday pressure is still fairly slack. The airflow is coming around from the north, the atmosphere is still fairly unstable, and there's a trough shown on here on the dashed black lines. That just indicates some converging air and the trigger for some showers then, likely down the spine of the country, down the Pennines, and drifting further eastwards as the afternoon goes on, which will mean that much of Wales, the Lake District and Western Scotland becomes essentially a dry story. One or two showers still left across the eastern highlands. The wind's pretty light, sunshine and very clear air away from any of those showers. By Sunday, high pressure is built across the country. Something of a front just skirting past the north of Scotland may just produce more in the way of cloud, and at worst a few spits and spots just around the far northwest coast. But for the most part, it's a dry, bright day, sunshine and broken cloud, the cloud bubbling up a little bit inland through the day. Very small risk of an isolated shower. This model chart shows a few green specks. I'd be surprised if anything gets going. Most likely, with high pressure and stable conditions, it's a dry day overall. The high becomes centred toward the east into Monday then. The airflow across Scotland is from the south, across England and Wales a bit more southeasterly. It's dry overall, there's very little in the way of low cloud, a few fragments maybe just around in the morning, but most of the mountains in the clear. Again, there's a front somewhere just toward the northwest of Scotland, most likely away over the sea. At worst, it may just produce a few banks of cloud around the coast, but it's a dry and a bright and a sunny story, and temperatures lifting through the daytime. The high doesn't move too much into Tuesday. It's that general south by southeast of the airflow that's in charge. Any fronts have long since decayed away. It's a dry story, it's a widely sunny one, hardly any cloud around across the hills, maybe a few low-level mist and fog patches just locally at dawn. But it's a fine day, lots of strong May sunshine, and those temperatures feeling warm, as we mentioned, best in the west and the northwest. Similar south by southeasterlies into Wednesday. We might just find a bit of a strengthening of that wind across some mountains, depends just what the shape of the high is by that stage. But it stays dry, fronts over the Atlantic are being held away, nothing coming in at this stage. It may be that low eventually, as it drifts towards Biscay, produces some complications by the end of the week, but most likely into midweek it's another dry, warm and sunny picture. So this is where we are in the middle of the week, the high very much centred around the North Sea. Now eventually, as that just pulls a bit further northwards and pressure begins to fall towards our southwest, the wind flow is tipped more into an easterly. It will tend to drag in more in the way of cloud off the North Sea, so those eastern hills may eventually start to become covered. It depends just on the moisture of the air mass that comes in. Essentially it's still a dry picture. As things destabilise a touch though, there's the risk of one or two areas of showers breaking out in the second half of the week. With low pressure toward the south of Britain, the risk is greatest more across Wales. There could be a few areas of thunderstorms that try and get into the mix, all very tricky to pin down at this stage. Broadly then, it's an easterly wind that is likely towards next weekend, strengthening compared to earlier in the week, so the basic message is expect that wind to pick up in the second half of the week onwards. Maybe quite gusty around the Pennines, for example, as would be typical under an easterly airflow. Essentially, it looks as though easterly winds continue, and that will mean that western Scotland will see very little in the way of rainfall, maybe even well onwards into the final 3rd of May. If this pattern does prevail, the indication favours low pressure being somewhere towards the southwest of Britain, high pressure somewhere toward the north, maybe also over Central Europe, and that is the pattern that we get almost to about the 20th of May. So we need to watch the details for the later part of the week, but overall it's looking pretty set fair, much more a taste of early summer than the wintry conditions we've seen just recently. Stay up to date then every day on our website with all your local details. Thanks for watching today. Bye for now.